Jimmy Butler is now 2 games back with the Miami Heat, but nothing has changed and nothing will change in the future. We're still wondering where he will be later this year as much as we're wondering where he will be next year, because it definitely will not be with the Miami Heat. My name is Manuel Buroz. We're going to talk about exactly what has, or in this case really hasn't changed for Jimmy Butler, the Miami Heat, on this edition of Heat Digest. Before we do that, let's make sure that we're continuing to subscribe to the Heat Digest community, as you guys have done a great job at growing the community. You guys have gotten those subscribe numbers up. You've gotten those non-subscribe numbers down. And we continue to ask you guys to do that, especially when it comes to the whole drama that is with Jimmy Butler and the Heat, with what has gone, what hasn't happened, what we're waiting on to happen, and everything in between. Like I mentioned on this at the beginning of the episode, nothing has changed. Butler still wants out of Miami. He still does not want to be wearing a Miami Heat uniform, no matter what that uniform is. And Shams said it best. Nothing has changed, quote, with his trade request. He firmly has reiterated to Miami, to Pat Riley, to Mickey Arison, to everybody in the organization, he does not want to be here. And we still know that Phoenix Suns, or the Phoenix Suns I should say, are the preferred destination for him. We know that the Suns want Jimmy Butler. We know that they would be not even hesitant. They would not even think for a moment on flipping him for Bradley Beal. But as we all know, Jimmy Butler for Bradley Beal will not happen, because the Heat will not let it happen. We already know that it just doesn't make sense. It wouldn't even be a lateral move. It would be a backwards move for the organization. I think Bradley Beal is a great player. I think he's going to, I just don't think he's worth that contract. I really don't. And the worst part is not even the money. It's the fact that there's a no trade clause attached to it, because now you can't even flip him for something else along the line or something else down the road. So don't really see the Phoenix Suns getting Jimmy Butler through trade, at least maybe through something else in the offseason, but not right now, as long as the Bradley Beal package is really the only thing on the table from the Suns. Jimmy Butler, again, we're 2 games in now. Nothing changed off the court. On the court, he's had a decent performance. I'd say a very good performance, honestly, against Denver. Nothing crazy, but he had a nice performance for his first game back. The only thing that really came out of that game that had some people talking, or some people, kind of noticing, was his reaction, or his facial reactions to being introduced at the arena at the game for the starting 5. And, didn't really seem too thrilled to be back or anything like that, which kind of segues into my topic on him and what he said after the Spurs game. I might have been actually after the Denver game as well, where he said, quote, he loved being back out there with the guys, because he said, again, quote, his issue, his beef is not with the teammates, is not with the team per se, as much as it is with the organization and the front office people. Again, Pat Riley, Mickey Arison, even Eric Spoelstra a little bit, from what I'm hearing with regards to their relationship as well. But Jimmy Butler said he doesn't have a problem with the guys. He's glad to be back out there. Today they played the Spurs. They won in pretty dominant fashion. Nothing really to report on that. And Jimmy Butler played just under 28 minutes, had 8 points on 7 shot attempts. Jimmy Butler in the regular season game, kind of a mad game for him. Didn't really need a performance like that, but I do think for his sake and for the Heat's sake, there needs to be a fine line between allowing the rest of the team to get the reps, to get chemistry together, to for those guys who are going to be here for the long term after this season, Khalil Ware, Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, those kind of Jaime Jaquez, those type of guys. But also understand that to get Jimmy Butler's trade value up, you're going to have to show teams that he can still perform at this level, at this age. Because, and I'll talk about it a little bit, you're not just trading for Jimmy Butler, the player. You're also trading, you're going to get some baggage. You're going to get some baggage, You're going to get some drama. And it's best said because things just don't work seamlessly when Jimmy Butler is on your team, no matter what. I mentioned Shams does, nothing has changed. Nothing's changed when it comes to Jimmy Butler, the person. Quote, this is according to Sam Mitchell on the NBA radio. I don't see this getting better, because how do you change the feelings in that locker room? I mentioned that Jimmy Butler does not have a problem with his teammates, but that's not to say his teammates don't have a problem with him, or at least what he said. It's very hard to say what you said publicly on record and reiterate it multiple times, and then just try to seamlessly come back into the locker room, seamlessly come back. And it's one thing when you're, kind of getting blown out against Denver and you're doing a blowing out against the Spurs. But what about when there's a close game? What about when you go on the road? We've seen it happen with other teams in the past. Everybody kind of points to the fact that Kevin Durant left Golden State because of the breakdown that happened in Los Angeles on the road at the end of a tight game. How can we not say that that's going to happen again? When we know Jimmy Butler's reputation, he is kind of like Draymond Green, where he's very confrontational. He does not mind saying the truth, no matter if you're going to like it or not. He will not hesitate to make things uncomfortable, because that is who Jimmy Butler is. When you trade for Jimmy Butler, you trade for, in the past, you would trade for one of the best competitors, one of the most competitive competitors in the league's history, honestly. One of the best playoff performers in league history. Can't argue that. But now, just like before, and honestly now more than ever, you're also trading for the drama that comes with Jimmy Butler. You see here, quote from Bob Myers, a former GM in the league. He said, "You want Jimmy Butler? Part of the package is drama. I like Jimmy Butler. He's one of the most competitive players our league has seen. He helps you win, but seems like he's doing everything he can to create disruption." And that has been Jimmy Butler's MO. You cannot lie with the trend, the pattern that you've seen through the past, because we talk about every destination he's been at, it's the same situation, the same problem, the same equation every single time. You have a situation where we start in Chicago. He got to Chicago, the last pick in the first round was not looked at as much, developed into being the franchise guy, didn't no one really made an issue with him wanting out of Chicago, because we all knew that he wasn't going to win there. You go to Minnesota and you're already in love with it, because on paper it makes sense. You have a young Cat, a young Wiggins. You have, just a great group of young talent around you. And then they get to the playoffs for the first time in however many years it was before they got there, since the KG era, really. But then here comes the infamous practice debacle, the infamous practice incident, saying that you need me to win. You need me, calling the young guys that are supposed to be the future of the franchise soft and all this kind of stuff. So where does he go? He ends up going to Philadelphia. And again, on paper, you're like, this is going to work. Jimmy Butler is the closer, the ball handler that Joel Embiid needs. You have Ben Simmons, who was still Ben Simmons at the time. You had a JJ Redick. You had all this stuff around that you said, this team should be good for years to come. This could be the next powerhouse in the East. And it was going there. It was getting there. Jimmy Butler, remember those first two games in Philadelphia, he looked astronomical, hitting game winners, 60-point performances, all this kind of stuff. And then the infamous quote, Tobias over me. Tobias over me, and kind of sums up what ended the Philadelphia-Jimmy Butler relationship. And now you come to Miami, and you said the same thing. On paper, it makes sense. He culture, Jimmy Butler, the competitor, the dog, built from a different cloth, all this stuff, and it worked. Got to the NBA Finals 2 times. Got to the Eastern Conference Finals multiple times. Couldn't get over the big one, and now we're here where he's threatened pretty much, and we know Jimmy Butler isn't threatened. Jimmy Butler promises that he will make things uncomfortable for everybody involved. Granted, we also have Pat Riley, who does not mind making things uncomfortable as well. So we'll see what gives first, but we know what things are going to happen here. We know this timeline where we've reached the beginning of the end here, and the question just becomes, what will the end be? What will be that final moment? Because as much as we talk about all these trade scenarios and all this kind of stuff, the main thing that we have to remember, and Brian Windhorst said it best with regards to Jimmy Butler, and the message to the Heat fans, honestly, that I'll reiterate here, quote, "This is what Heat fans need to know, and certainly the Heat know. His number one goal is to be traded. His actions will be aimed at getting himself traded, preferably to the Phoenix Suns, period." That is what we're looking at when we talk about the trade situations for Jimmy Butler and the Heat. Now, a trade that I know no one's really talked about. We've all heard every type of reason that Phoenix can't work. We've heard every type of reason why they should go with Houston, or they should go with maybe Memphis, or any of these other teams out west, or even in the Eastern Conference if you want a Philadelphia reunion, all this kind of stuff. I'm going to stick with the Suns here, and a trade that I found on Instagram by Basketball Forever, I believe was the Instagram account, and I really liked it. It was new. It was different. It's a 4-teamer between the Miami Heat, Chicago Bulls, Los Angeles Lakers, and Phoenix Suns. Now, we'll break it down piece by piece. The Heat will be giving up, obviously, Jimmy Butler, and he will be going to Phoenix along with Gabe Vincent from the Los Angeles Lakers. The Miami Heat will be getting Zach LaVine, Jackson Hayes, and Christian Wood, both from the Lakers, and as well as the Bulls' LaVine. The Bulls will be getting Cam Reddish from the Lakers and Bradley Beal from the Suns, along with the 2025 first-round pick from Miami and some cash consideration. And then the Lakers will get Yusuf Nurkic from the Phoenix Suns, along with a 2026 first-rounder and a 2025 second-rounder. Now, we'll start with that bottom one with the Lakers. The only reason that really works for the Lakers is because they need a center. You put Nurkic at the 5, you move AD back to the 4, and you solve a problem that's really been hindering them since they won their championship back in the 2020 bubble. You go up to the Bulls. The Bulls are in purgatory. The Bulls don't really have anything to lose by taking on Bradley Beal. You get a first rounder from Miami, and you get some cash consideration, and you take a flyer in Cam Reddish, who you put next to Nayu DeSumo with Josh Giddey. You put it next to Patrick Williams. Maybe things work out. Lonzo Ball continues to get back healthy. Worst case, it's a low risk, high reward situation for the Chicago Bulls, and maybe Bradley Beal can kind of get some trade value back while he's there. He'll get a lot of shot attempts, and if not, maybe you have his situation where he finishes out his contract there, because again, the Bulls won't be good for a few years to come, so you have some wiggle room there to try and find the next big piece for the Bulls, as well as let Bradley Beal kind of play out his contract and then see where he ends up after that. For the Phoenix Suns, you get who you want, Jimmy Butler. You get Gabe Vincent, a backup point guard there who hasn't really had a good stint with Los Angeles Lakers, so it's kind of a little bit of a risk there. But you get the guy you want, Jimmy Butler, to replace Bradley Beal, pair him alongside Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and you have yourself a very, very playoff lock, I would say, team. Not necessarily a contender, but a playoff lock for sure once we see how things are actually playing out. Now, for the Heat, which is what everybody wants to talk about in this scenario. Yes, I know Zach LaVine doesn't really make too much sense, but in hindsight, if we look at what is out there right now, it really comes down to, would you prefer Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine? I would prefer Zach LaVine. Younger, I believe the contract's a little bit less, if not pretty much the same. No trade clause, which is very, very important in my opinion. And you pair him with Tyler Hero, not saying it's a great backcourt defensively, but offensively, which is what the Heat have kind of struggled with in the past, even with Jimmy Butler at times. You really get to the crux of things, and he's still a ball handling guard. He can still create for others, and he's still somewhat in his prime, I would say. I don't think it's a horrible thing. I really don't. If Bradley Beal or Zach LaVine are the two options on the table for the Heat, I'm going Zach LaVine every single day of the week and twice on a Sunday. I really, really do. And you add in a Jackson Hayes and a Christian Wood who would be the fives that the Heat have been looking for. Now you have someone that Khalil Ware can learn from a Jackson Hayes, who's pretty much the same type of player. Obviously, in my opinion, Khalil Ware is better already, but someone to learn from in a sense of a rim running, a vertical lob threat, a shot blocker, and just kind of learn the ropes of being a type of center, that type of player in the association. Christian Wood, we've seen what he can do. He's had some bright moments. You put him in the Heat culture, maybe not necessarily as a starter, I would say, but a rotational player who can play a little bit of 4, play a little bit of 5, mix and match with Bam Adebayo. Not a horrible thing. And now you've turned the Miami Heat situation into at least bare minimum what we already are, which is a play-in team, if not a playoff lock. That's pretty much what we are right now. And honestly, I don't even know if we're a playoff lock. We're probably a play-in lock at that. At least with this trade, you open up some possibilities of moving up in the standings and maybe getting yourself some nice little noise in the offseason, going into the offseason with someone who wants to come to play for Miami. But again, I'll put up the trade on so you guys can see it before we end the video here. Let me know down below, do you like this trade for the Miami Heat? Do you think it's unnecessary? Do you think that we can get something better? Or if this is the best we can get and we should pull the trigger if this was actually, or if you were the GM for the Heat, would you pull this trigger if it reached your phone lines and it came across your desk throughout the day? But with that being said, we'll catch you guys on the next episode of Heat Digest.